All right, how's it going, everybody? For those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt, and I run a channel called 360 Investigations. Just give a quick rundown while people may be getting in here, and if you're not in here to watch the stream, you can watch it later because it's going to be uploaded in its entirety here on YouTube. That being said, let me give a brief introduction about who I am and what I do. All right, so first things first. I run this channel with my wife, which I used to go into abandoned buildings and film them. That's what I used to do. And I use a 360 camera to do that. But that was a hobby I got over with and, got it kind of done with. So now there's really no desire for me to do it the same way it originally was. It was a hobby, I came, conquered it, and did it. So what I wanted to do was focus this channel more so for outdoor ends, the outdoor end of things such as hiking, camping, things like that. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because there are too many idiots and too many fraudulent YouTube channels and just people that are sponsored passing themselves off as hiking channels or gear review channels when they're doing nothing of this sort. They're just there as the face of a name brand. And while some of them may mean well, that's not what they're actually doing. They're literally trying to push gear that these companies want to sell them. So when you have people looking at these channels from an outside view who don't actually know what's going on, they're taking these channels as serious gear channels, like what to do and things like that. I have a series here on my YouTube channel that goes over survival. It's called Survival Correction. And it basically breaks down and goes over all the stupid shit that people have been saying on the channels that people are looking up to that's just not true. And so, as with anything, you get a lot of hate, you get a lot of shit and everything else. And this basically started off with the ultralight hiking, the ultralight section of the hiking community, which is a whole ridiculous section in itself. And that's basically my very first survival correction video, was the ultralight lie. All right, so I gotta find out why this bit rate is messed up. Okay, so that is basically what this channel was. And since I want to just gear it to, and why I geared it toward hiking and outdoors. That brings me to the point on this video here, because I'm getting a lot of people saying stuff to me about replies I'm leaving under certain YouTubers' videos. And without naming the actual YouTubers, because those people know who they are, I just want to point out that I'm not the only one saying this. There are other people. I shouldn't say that. I'm not the only person that has a major problem with this. I'm the only person I'm one of the only people, or one of the few people that are saying something about it. So people are looking at, well, you seem to be the only one talking about it, and trying to apply that isn't a problem just because nobody's saying anything. And that's not how things work. So let me break down what this video is, because again, I'm going to be addressing these basically fraudulent YouTubers who are passing themselves off to get credit for something that they're not actually doing. That brings you to the point on the AT, which is the Appalachian Trail. And as the title of this video states, Delusion on the AT. That basically means people are under the impression that they're hiking the trail when they're actually not hiking the trail. And everyone's like, what do you mean they're out there? And all the people who don't have a clue about what hiking actually is and only getting their information from these other YouTube channels that are doing gear channels are not understanding what they're not understanding. So basically that's the breakdown of everything. Sorry it took a little bit longer, but let me get into this. So I'm going to start off with this reference, and then I'm just going to keep going. Every time I bring something up, I'm going to bring up this reference as the point of contention for this, because that's literally what's going on here. All right, so let me start by explaining when if somebody takes their car and they start driving it up Mount Washington, and every mile or so they get out of their car to film something, they walk about 100 yards filming, then they get back in the car and they drive up the mountain further, and they just keep repeating that. What they've done is they've driven to the top of Mount Washington. But what's happening here in the comparison is people that are driving to the top of Mount Washington are claiming that they actually hiked it. And they're using the phrase, I climbed to the top of Mount Washington, to cover both ends of it, because theoretically your car does climb to the top of Mount Washington. So they're actually not lying when they say it that way. But they want people to think that they actually walked up as an actual hike. So driving up to the top of Mount Washington and then claiming you hiked it is the equivalency of what I'm going to be talking about in these videos. So let me start by explaining that the AT Conservancy can get this under control. They just refuse not to, because all of the hostels along the trail are privately owned. But that doesn't matter. These privately owned hostels, or quote businesses, bed and breakfast, whatever you want to call them, are literally on the way of the trail. And the trail is overlooked by several agencies, but it has one basic governing agency for the most part of certain things that apply to the entire trail. Now, they can't control, one area can't control what another area does. However, they can all come to the base conclusion that these hostel owners need to be given specific rules that they're not allowed to break. So there are several YouTubers who are using every single safety net to go through the trail, and then they're claiming they're hiking the trail, which is where the Mount Washington reference comes in. Hikers that go from hostel to hostel to hostel cannot handle the trail. That is just how it is. The trail, back when it was in the 80s, if you did the trail, it actually meant something, because all the bullshit that people that are going through the trail are being given as safety nets didn't exist back then. The 100-mile wilderness didn't have any drop-off points. Once you entered it, you were stuck until you got to the other end, which was 100 miles, which basically made that that section of the trail so difficult. But since then, a hostel owner now gives 3 drop-off points to the 100-mile wilderness, which makes it useless. It's not even the same 100-mile wilderness, because people are allowed to cheese and pussyfoot their way through because they have to be coddled. So what I'm saying here is that there are YouTubers who are who are going out. They're basically going a slight long distance, which is basically no different than you or I walking up a hill or going down the street. Then at the end, at the slightest bit of rain, the wind, they have to cry about it and run indoors to go to a hostel or into a hotel in town. Furthermore, they eat in town. And I'm not saying don't go do this, on the trail at all. That's not what I'm saying. You have to do that eventually at various points. But these pricks I'm talking about are doing it every 3 to 4 days, over and over and over again. They don't even know how to handle the elements of the trail. Then you have all these people making excuses about the weather this, the weather that. Unless the Conservancy tells you to get off of the trail, or some authority figure like that, like a forest ranger, says get off of the trail due to the weather, or because you will be in danger of getting killed or seriously hurt, then anybody trying to use the weather as an excuse to get off the trail is not hiking the trail. There seems to be a misconception about what through hiking is. So let me just break this off. There is the Conservancy definition of through hiking, and then there is the actual hiker definition of through hiking. They are not the same thing. The Conservancy allows people to be coddled going through the trail. An actual hiker will refuse to use a hostel and say, no, I'm going to stay out in the rain. I'm going to do this in a tent. Anybody says, well, what's wrong with going to the hostels, or, what's the problem with it? Nobody said there was a problem with it or there was anything wrong with using them. If people are saying that after the comments are making that, then they're not listening to what's being said. They're just being idiots and just jumping the gun on what they want things to say. There is nothing wrong with using the hostels or going to them. The problem is people that are doing that are then claiming they're hiking the AT. That's a lie. You are not hiking the AT if you keep going off the trail to go into coddled, cushy civilian spaces where you can do your laundry, stay in a bed. There is no point in you going through 2,100 miles if you're just going to keep going back to your house at the end of the day. That's all you're doing. You are literally going back to your house at the end of the day. So, sorry, I'm trying to see if any of you is coming in. Going back to your house at the end of the day is not frigging hiking the trail. People keep acting like, well, they're out there doing it. No, they're not. If you're going back to your house at the end of the day, which is what you're doing when you go to a hostel, then you've nullified any type of hiking access that you want, because any clown can go do a couple miles. Oh, my legs are sore. Go into bed, take a bath, rest in the hostel for a day or two, and then go back out. You're going to your house and then going back out, which defeats the entire purpose of going on the trail. So again, I want to be clear. There is a difference between the AT Conservancy's definition of thru hiker and an actual true hiking definition of thru hiker. They are not the same thing. And people, let's put it this way, remove all these frigging safety nets that are allowing these morons to pussy their way through the trail, and then see let's see what happens then. Usually when you have these people that are allowed to pussyfoot through the trail and be coddled through it, it gives the impression that they know how to hike. So, to bring it back full circle, one of the main YouTubers I'm talking about, I'm not going to mention a person's name because there's no reason to do that, but there are several YouTubers that are doing this hostel shit and then claiming they're hiking the trail, and everybody's like, oh, good for you, you're doing something tough. You haven't had a hard day out there at all if you go indoors afterwards. And to be clear, I'm not saying don't do that, because I am planning an actual through hike of the AT in 2025. And I'm telling you right now, if half of these people out there I don't care if you've done the AT, walked the AT, claim you walked the AT. If you've gone indoors for more than 3/4 of your trip, you haven't done shit on the AT. So my point here is that if these people are going through this and they're claiming that they did it, I guarantee you if they came out with me, they wouldn't last for 2 weeks, or they would last no more than a month. They wouldn't be able to handle it. And the reason why is because the AT is specifically designed to be hiked without any comforts. That's how this works. And so if the AT Conservancy forced all the hostels to shut down, these YouTubers that are out there right now wouldn't be out there, because they know they wouldn't be able to go through the trail. And people are like, isn't that a good thing? You got more people on the trail? No, because it's giving them a delusion that they can do something they cannot do. I mean, hell, this YouTuber I was talking about, the specific YouTuber I'm talking about, can't even handle basic rain. Every time it rains, in a shelter, in a shelter, in a shelter. Got to get out of the rain. Can't handle being wet. Once in a while she did it, but for the most part, they were talking about how they picked up at 7 o'clock at night because they were in fear of a hurricane and went to a hostel. Piss off. You're not hiking. You're pussying your way through, going from piece to piece to piece, and then acting like you're doing something major. You don't get credit for doing this shit claiming you're doing this major hike. You're not hiking the AT if you're doing that. Sorry, you're not. That is the underwritten rule that are coming from the actual hikers, not this bullshit the Conservancy is allowing people to do. So again, remove all the safety nets that's allowing these clowns to go through, and we'll see who really goes out there. They wouldn't be out there. They just wouldn't be out there because they wouldn't know what to do. So one of the things I want to explain is this YouTuber is now running into a serious problem when she hit Maine. And I said this a few videos back because I've been following this person for months. Like, not following, but I've been, keeping an eye on their stuff. And I'll explain how, afterwards, I'll explain how I even got looking at their channel in the first place. But I specifically stated, you are hostile in shelter hopping and going to hotels and staying in town and doing your laundry and cleaning up. You have no idea how this trail really is. What's going to happen to you is you are going to hit Maine or New England and you are going to have serious problems because you are not going to be able to handle it because you're not enduring the trail when it's easier to handle. If you can't endure the trail from Georgia to Massachusetts, you sure as shit are not going to be able to handle it past that point. New England has the hardest section of the trail. The way the trail is designed from south to north, if you're going northbound from Georgia to Maine, the way it's set up is all these little incidences are gearing you up to be able to handle the toughest parts of the trail. If you get off of the trail, you have nullified any type of ability to handle any type of really tough turf or, weather or whatever. And so, unless you're forced to go inside, which happens at the Smoky Mountains, you basically either have to stay in a tent or you're forced to go in a shelter. They make you do it. Or there is some serious weather condition that they tell you have to get off of the trail because you'll get killed or there's some serious damage. Then you stay on the trail in your tent at all times. Period. You don't sleep in bed, stop pussyfooting through the trail and acting like you're accomplishing something. You're not. And again, doing the trail today isn't a big deal. It's nothing. You haven't accomplished anything because all of these safety nets, they've always been there, but people are now abusing it. This is basically trail abuse. That's what it is. And so people don't understand, well, why does that bother you? Let's get something straight. People can go through the trail however the fuck they want. That is not the problem. The problem here is you cannot do that and call yourself a hiker because it's insulting the actual hikers. You don't have a right and you haven't earned that privilege to be calling yourself a hiker. That's the problem. It's pissing off the actual people doing the hiker. And people are like, well, you're just mad because you didn't think of this. No. We're not mad because you didn't think of this. We're pissed off because you're lying about doing something. Again, I referenced the Mount Washington using the car. You cannot claim you climb Mount Washington not mentioning that you did it in a car, acting like you're hiking and letting people believe you actually walked up it, you disingenuous piece of shit. So this bullshit claptrap fucking good for you, you're a thru hiker, fuck off, you're not. So you people that are going through the trail, shelter and hostel hopping, staying in, doing laundry every 4 days, you are an insult to hiking. You don't belong out there, and you have no clue to what you're actually doing. Remove all that shit, and let's see how well. Then come talk to me. Come with me for a hike. I want to see how long you'll actually last. And this is coming from somebody who hasn't done the AT, but I'm fully aware of everything I'm doing and everything I'm getting into. I'm not by far not an expert or anything else, and I don't claim to be. Anybody who says that's an idiot. I am just point blank explaining. I understand hiking because I understand how it is. And I if people don't understand how New England is, I grew up in New England. Okay, and this is another reason why I'm saying this, is because I've camped in the White Mountains in Maine, in various places in New England, at minus 20 below, snowing, had to wear snowshoes. And when I say camped, I don't mean we went into a log cabin. We hiked with the snowshoes into a camp, chopped down an area, like cleared it out of some trees, put up a tent, created a fire, and we camped there for the entire weekend. Then we hiked out. When I say we hiked and camped, I know what I'm doing because I understand the way New England is. White Mountains, Maine, all of it. So I know for a fact these morons and these assholes that are going from shelter hopping to shelter hopping cannot handle New England. They can't even handle it in the beginning of the trail. So I don't want to hear these people that are saying, well, you know, they walked a long distance. If they go inside, it nullifies it. You're supposed to be wet. You're not supposed to be fun on this. This is not what this is. You stay dry to the best you can. Half of these people don't even know how to walk down hills, nor do they know how to cross streams. And if you're asking me, how do I know that? It's because I know how to hike. People are like, well, that's different out there. I'm not saying it's not different, but the basic principles for hiking and how to cross streams going downhill, no matter where you go, and no matter what it is, what temperature, season, are identical. Meaning the concept on how you actually go through it is the same on all of it. There is literally a universal way to go down a hill. There's a single way. Obviously, you don't do that in ice, without specific equipment. But when you have that specific equipment on, the way you go down on ice is literally the exact same way you go down on a non-cloudy, nice day. People that are hiking only want it when it's nice out and don't want to handle the rain, which means they're pussies and they don't know how to handle the trail. So all of these YouTubers, they are fake hiking. They've barely done any of the trail because every time at the end of the day, they rush inside. They got to go to the hostels. Look at where I'm staying tonight. And have absolutely no clue to what they're doing. Why are you even bringing tents? Don't even bring a tent. Stay indoors. There's no reason for it. So that brings me to the point on why I even started watching this YouTuber in the first place. When I'm watching for stuff, there are things, I don't care about these YouTube channels, they're all the dime a dozen. I look for very specific things that I just happen to see in the background of stuff. So when I was looking for a tent, I spent 9 weeks just looking for a tent. I have it now. It's the Big Agnes Copper Spur HVUL2 long. I have it over there. I have it on my channel. I made a footprint for it and everything. So basically, what happened was, I watched so many YouTubers just put this tent up, put this tent up, put this. I put a complaint video up about that all these YouTubers, it's like they can't go through they can't go hiking without having really luxurious gear or going inside or both. Okay, you don't need luxurious gear. If you're going to go do the trail, actually do the freaking trail. You don't require half of these cushy tents and $500 sleeping bags. No, you don't need any of that shit. That's just people being stupid because they can't handle the trail. And when you have all these YouTubers doing the same stuff over and over again, it's like, I just roll my eyes. As soon as somebody opens up a Delusion tent in their video, I shut their video off. As soon as somebody opens up like a Nemo Dragonfly tent, I shut the video off. You don't stop going. Use a tent that everybody, use an actual tent. Put yourself in a problem. It's ridiculous. That's the way the trail life works. This bullshit of getting luxury through the trail needs to fucking end. It's really annoying. So what happened was, I refused to buy a 700. I refused to buy those tents. There's no reason for them. You don't need them. Oh, I finally got to go camping with this. Shut the hell up. So I try to find things that are decent, will work well, but with minusing all of the actual luxuries that these things provide. You can go through the trail without a frickin' Durston or X-Pack tent. X-Men, okay? You can do that. Stop requiring this stop going through this as a requirement. It's fucking ridiculous and you look stupid. It's like every time I see these people, I just want to, it's like, get real. Go freaking hike for real. It's like, oh my God, it's like they can't hike without it. Anyway, sorry for that, but basically back to what I was saying. I happen to be watching this YouTuber, and what drew me to this person's channel was the tent this person was using. Because everybody's using Durstins and, whatever. This person didn't have that. I was like, huh. And this is when I was researching tents. So I started paying attention to what this YouTuber was doing because, okay, this is cool. I respect that because you have a tent that nobody else seems to be using that seems to be working. And it took me about 4 or 5 watchings of this person's channel before I realized they're not actually hiking. Every freaking video was, look at where I'm staying tonight. It's indoors. I did this. Oh, they allow you to stay here. I'm having breakfast. I'm doing this. They're not leaving their frigging house. It's pathetic. They're literally camping in their house. That's all they're doing. And then they somehow think that's something, they're accomplishing something. You're not. You're not doing that. It's so stupid to even go that the Conservancy even allows people to go through the trail like this. It's ridiculous. I mean, honestly, the trail, these people don't deserve to be on the trail, and they shouldn't be. The trail should be reserved for actual hikers that know how to do the trail and can go through it without having to run inside every freaking time something happens. So, again, it's just, I look for things that people are doing, and I see things in the background, and it draws me to the channel. So I wound up following, or basically watching this person for months. In every one of their videos, it's the same thing. Look where I stayed. I'm having good breakfast. And they're eating real food and having a cushy lifestyle on the trail, and then claiming they're having a hardship. She hasn't had one hard day on the trail. And yes, it's a she, but she hasn't had one hard day on the trail. And so, as I stated, if you can't handle the beginning of the trail, you're not going to be able to handle up north. And I said this. I said, you're going to have a problem when you hit Maine. Today, a video went up within the past 2 days. She's having a problem in Maine, exactly as I said she would. But she's trying to claim it's for reasons that's not true. She's having problem. Every problem she's encountered on this trail is because she, instead of enduring the weather and went out, she decided to rush inside, couldn't wait to get indoors, stay in a cushy, safe environment, and then she hasn't learned a damn thing. And again, why does it bother me? Because she's a fraud. And people like that have no right to go through the trail lying to their YouTube viewers that they are hiking, and then the YouTubers are just, oh, you're good job. Really? No. She's not doing anything because she hasn't learned to be able to do it. And so I know I keep harping on this, but this is the friggin' problem. So let me break this down a little further, because I know I said if you can't handle the earlier trail, you're not going to be able to handle the upper trail. So when you go through Pennsylvania, it's all rocky and stuff like that. Great. That's a little bit rough. But once you get all of these sections together, like the harder sections where you have to scramble, you have to climb, you have to go up stuff, that is getting you ready for Mount Washington, because there are 3 sections in Mount Washington that are extremely tedious. If you haven't, basically, you're using all the previous states to practice the upcoming states, or the sections in the states. Once you get through once you get through Mount Washington, the combination of going through all 3 of those, plus what you previously did, is getting you ready for sections of Maine. So these things all fall together, and they fall in place for a reason. So this is why a lot of people don't start in Maine, because they don't, well, I shouldn't say that. the people that start in Maine are trying to get the most difficult part of the trail out of the way, because that's just, you're stuffing everything at once at the hardest part. So for me, I wouldn't do that. I'm not that hardcore of a hiker. I'm going to enjoy my hike because I know what I'm doing with it. And if something should happen, I'll be prepped for it. But you won't see me running inside because, oh shit, it's 7 o'clock. I believe there's going to be a hurricane. What's really funny is they were afraid to stay out of the wind because it was too dangerous, not understanding that walking through the woods in a hurricane is 10 times more dangerous than leaving your tent pitched. Like, that's how dense these people are. So, when I want to point something out. In the hurricane, I went outside and I have a video on my channel that has me in this tent. I am outside in this hurricane, and I'm not really covered by anything. I am literally out in the open in the hurricane when it was happening. When I had to go to the bathroom, I was in my backyard. And granted, that's not the same thing, but the fact I was actually in my tent during an actual hurricane. This is when the hurricane was actually going on. Raining again, it's on my channel. Testing, I can't remember the actual name of the video. But the point I'm making is when you're out there, that's what you have to deal with. Okay? And if you were so afraid to even have a tent in the woods during a windstorm, you have absolutely no right. And how dare you call yourself a hiker when you're out there? How dare you? Because that's slamming the name of hiking. So, in closing, these YouTubers need to cut the shit. Stop acting like you're hiking when you're doing nothing but going back to your house at the end of the day. Stop lying to your audience and be legitimate. So again, to clear this up, nobody said going to hostels and shelters is a problem. Nobody said there's anything wrong with it. So don't take what I'm saying and twist it out of context. What people are having an actual problem with is the hikers don't give a shit what the Conservancy wants to label through hiker. You are not a through hiker if you are going back to your house at the end of the day. Oh, I'm not going back to my house. If you're going into a hostel, it's the same thing as going back to your house and then going back out on the trail the next day. You are not doing the trail as intended. And yes, if you are claiming to do a 2,000-mile hike, you have no business going inside, because that is not how that is intended to be done. It is intended to be very tough, dealing with the elements, not running inside and doing your laundry, eating great breakfast, and I slept good last night. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that the trail has allowed people that can only get through it by being coddled and wusses to even go out there. Like, seriously, they need to remove all the safety nets, and you will see who can really get through that trail. So that's all I'm going to say with this at this point. I just wanted to get that cleared up, and anybody who, again, didn't get to this live stream can come watch it afterwards on the channel there. That's it. So I will be going through and doing, talking about the actual stuff nobody really wants to talk about on the AT, how I did my planning and things like this, and some of the stuff that people should be saying to give off the impression of what's going on, things like that. So again, I'm going to start slowly making videos about this for the prep of my hike. And again, I'm not doing this till until 2025. But I just wanted to get this video out of the way because people are making comments about me and basically saying, what's the problem? It's ridiculous. It is amazing that it just amazes me, the stupidity level of people and what they actually believe. So, all right, that's it. It's Matt for 360 Investigation signing out.